So you're thinking about moving to Boise, Idaho. You've seen all the articles and news reports talking about what a fantastic place Boise is to live, work, raise a family, start a business, just pretty much do all the things. But you clicked on this video because you're a realist and you're looking to hear about some of the not so ideal aspects of calling Boise home. Because just like all areas, while Boise certainly has its pros, it certainly isn't for everyone. So in this video, I'm going to get candid with you and break down 12 cons that I want you to know about before moving to Boise. Some of these might have you running in the other direction altogether. And some of the others you might find yourself thinking, nah, if that's the worst of the worst, I'll be a-okay. But ultimately, we want you to know what it's really like so you can make the best decision for you and whoever is moving along right alongside you. Hey there, Marcie Ellison here. I'm a local real estate agent here in the Boise, Idaho area. And if this is your first time visiting our channel and you're looking to learn more about both Boise and all of the surrounding cities and suburbs that really work together to make the Treasure Valley the place it is, then you've come to the right place. Our goal is to put together on-the-ground videos that would have helped us 15 years ago when we were first thinking about calling Boise home. We post videos every single week featuring tours throughout Boise and its surrounding areas. We get calls from people just like you every single day, and we love it. So grab a pencil, jot down our phone number so that when you're ready to make that call or send us that intro text, you're dialed and we can get started. Okay, let's break these down right now. Con number 1, wildfires and inversions. So why are these important? Well, obviously we all know why wildfires are terrible, but what exactly are inversions and why am I putting them both in the same category? In a nutshell, both can have a significant impact on air quality. Living in the Boise, Idaho area means you can expect to have wildfires pop up just about every single year. For just about a month or two every year, we see our air quality suffer due to them. And then with inversions, which we typically see in the winter months, usually around mid-January to early February, they last about a week or two. Those two can definitely impact our air quality. If you aren't familiar with atmospheric inversions, which fair enough, they often catch newcomers by surprise. I certainly wasn't ready for them when we moved here 15 years ago. Essentially, with an inversion, it's when the air mass gets flipped upside down and temperatures in higher elevations remain warmer than they should. It basically feels like a blanket of dense fog and coldness just encases the valley. And unfortunately, that said blanket basically keeps all the smog and pollution, basically all the things that we definitely don't want to be breathing. Yeah, it's trapped all right down in the valley. So inversions are obviously not conducive for healthy air quality. For me and my family, our number one way to deal with inversions is to escape up to Bogus Basin. Bogus is really a lifesaver. And well, when it comes to inversion season, it's quite literally a breath of fresh air as the elevation climb just pops you right up and above the inversion cloud. On the plus side, with inversions, they don't happen every single year. And when they do, they only last about a week or two. Wildfires, on the other hand, yeah, you can't really nail down a duration when it comes to those. That said, we typically have them blow in from neighboring areas, so from California, Canada, Oregon, and Washington, and we mainly see them from mid to late summer through early fall, with July and August historically definitely seeing the worst. Thankfully, when either of these are impacting our air quality, there are several great, readily available resources available to help.
We're here to help.
This is especially useful and important for at-risk individuals so that they can ensure that they're aware of the current air quality before making any outdoor plans. I'll post a couple of great resources to check out in the description of this video. Okay, so now let's dive into another big potential con I want you to know about before making the decision to move here. Con number 2, poor city planning for growth. Now, Boise and really the whole Treasure Valley has really just exploded over the past decade.
So many people.
And especially over the past several years. And no one could expect the city to be able to immediately fix the various issues that massive growth like that brings about. But it's unfortunate that there wasn't more forethought and preparation. Back in 2006, when Andy, my husband, and I hadn't yet moved here, but we were eyeballing the Boise area, we knew then that it was up and coming and that it was going to experience a boom. Its upcoming projected growth was already being widely talked about at the national level. So it's unfortunate that more preparation wasn't put into place earlier. And because of that, you'll see a wide hodgepodge of neighborhoods that don't necessarily jive. You'll find apartments, duplexes, inflow lots, funky little farms, pretty much all of these things, and all tucked into the same areas with residential homes. And don't get me wrong, it's fun to have a mix in the community, but what gets frustrating for many is that one, the roads just were not ready.
Not ready.
And two, the lack of public resources, such as schools and other essential public services that should have gone up in a timely fashion to match the growth and need. So yeah, living in Boise right now means lots of construction, traffic congestion, and many ill-prepared and more often than not backed up roads. On the flip side, this is Idaho, so you better believe that there are people out there working on it. It's just going to take a beat or several to catch up. Now, let's move on to con number 3. If you are a big traveler and you want to live in a place where you can hop onto a direct flight to hit the major cities and hotspots across the country, well, Boise's airport is probably going to leave you wanting. Compared to many other US cities, Boise definitely has a limited number of direct flights to top destinations, which means, yeah, you will likely need to expect your travel time to just take longer.
How long?
And it also might be more expensive compared to what you're used to. That said, I do appreciate that the Boise airport remains surprisingly uncrowded considering our massive growth, and it is very conveniently located and pretty easy to get in and out of regardless of where in the Treasure Valley you live. Con number 4, taxes might not be quite what you expect. As the saying goes, there are a few certainties in life, and taxes are one of them. And yeah, I think we can all agree that the annual ritual of filing them with the IRS isn't exactly one of the best parts of being a grown-up. Interestingly, Idaho's income taxes are often a bit higher than most initially expect.
Wait, what?
This will, of course, depend on where you're coming from and what you're comparing it to. As of 2023, Idaho has a flat 5.8 individual income tax. And while this certainly is not the highest, it is higher than some other states that Idaho, based largely on political leanings, is compared to. Check out this chart to see how taxes on a whole line up. As you can see, while Texas, Alaska, and Florida have the 3 lowest, Idaho is way up at number 29. Also important to note that average annual salary for 2022 for those states is also certainly a bit higher than Idaho's average, $52,000 compared to nearly $66,000 for Alaska and just under $60,000 for Texas. Is it the absolute worst? Obviously no, but is it higher than most often expect? Yes. That said, talking to friends and past clients who have moved here from California, most of them are very, very happy with how Idaho's taxes are in comparison to California.
Much better.
At the same time, though, we've recently had people considering moving here from Texas and Alaska, and yeah, they were all a little bit surprised to hear about our tax system. So it really just depends on where you're coming from and what you're comparing it to. And again, Idaho's certainly are not the highest by any means, but they are higher than most, especially those who are coming from more conservative, Republican-leaning states initially seem to expect. Con number 5, living in Boise will mean you will not have many other major cities close by. Maybe my talk about the Boise airport didn't deter you much because maybe you're all about road trips.
I love road trips.
To this, I'd say be sure to check out a map and really see how far Boise is from some other major cities. Or here, let me help. Here is a map that shows how far it would take to drive to many popular cities on the west side of the US. So if you are used to being able to road trip over to a neighboring city to catch a play or catch an amazing traveling art exhibit, yeah, it won't be too easy to do. Boise is pretty well set off and on its own. And on that vein, of course, in the winter months, road conditions can be pretty tricky. Even for the best of drivers, black ice can be, well, downright scary. It seems like every single winter, the section of I-84 between Baker City and Pendleton gets completely shut down due to a massive wreck and just horrible road conditions. And that's a stretch of highway that's pretty much deemed essential to get to Portland, Seattle, Eugene, or any other significant area in the Northwest. That said, yes, there are detours you can take, but those obviously add significantly to travel times, which is not something that most always exactly want to have happen. So just a heads up on that one. Now, let's dive into con number 6. So this is one that I actually was very recently pretty shocked to discover. Just last weekend, we had a great couple in town who actually also found us through YouTube. Our YouTube clients are quickly becoming some of our absolute favorites, just saying. But anyhow, this couple is currently considering moving from Missoula to Boise. Over breakfast, they asked if we had seen an increase in drug use across Boise and its surrounding Treasure Valley. At first, my immediate and honest at that moment response was no, that we hadn't noticed a huge or any real significant uptick. But me being me with my journalism background and just my general desire to really know everything I can about our area, I went home and dove into the numbers and the statistics.
So I've been doing a bit of online research.
And while Boise's crime rate has historically been very low, and that thankfully remains the case today, we have indeed seen an uptick in drug use over the past several years. Unfortunately, the use of drugs like fentanyl and meth has increased, and right alongside of it, so has the abuse of prescription medications. Overdose deaths have doubled in the past 20 years. So you might be thinking, okay though, considering how much Boise has grown, what are those numbers really telling us? And good question. Those numbers are based and computed using ratios. So that means that the numbers are based relative to the population today. Alas, there is no doubt that the increase we are seeing when it comes to drugs is real and worth recognizing. I should point out, though, that your perspective on how big of a problem this is for Boise will, of course, vary depending on where you are coming from. We've had people relocating from both the Seattle and Portland areas who have repeatedly told us that in comparison, Boise is much, much cleaner and just overall feels like a much safer place to raise a family. So with that in mind, I found myself going down another research rabbit hole that led me to a series of interesting articles comparing drug use by state, such as this one, which I will link to in the description. As you can see, while drug use has unfortunately increased across the nation, if you line up the states, Idaho comes in at number 47, with the states with the worst ratings coming in as number 1, number 2, and 3. So basically, while seeing an increase in drug use is obviously negative at any level, Idaho is doing, in comparison, pretty darn well. I would really encourage you to check out this interactive tool, as there are multiple ways to filter the results to show more information detailing how law enforcement is handling these things, as well as the prevalence of rehab centers. So check out that link in the description. While I was, and I am sad, of course, to learn that we're seeing an uptick here, I am grateful to know that Boise as a whole, as well as the surrounding Treasure Valley, has an incredible task force working on the problem. Now, let's move on to potential con number 7. Let's talk about wages and the increasing income disparity we're seeing. Throughout the pandemic, we had a lot of people move here from other states who arrived with better paying, relative to Idaho anyhow, and remote friendly, so work from home jobs. So those people could and can often afford living here quite easily, but many born and raised Idahoans are stuck at the lower end of the wage pool, which makes the increase in what was before a pretty low price of living just flat out hard. As of today, Idaho's minimum wage is still $7.25, which puts the minimum weekly wage for a 40-hour week at, $290 a week? For most, that would be very difficult to live off of. Meanwhile, housing prices, which of course, more often than not, are a person's highest incurred costs, remain quite high. The low wage disparity here is becoming increasingly apparent and is just a problem. Now, let's tackle con number 8, and one that might make you decide that you definitely do not want to move to Boise, Idaho, or anywhere in its surrounding Treasure Valley. Flies. You heard me right. Oddly enough, Boise is known for its high population of flies. Late summer and fall is fly season here in Idaho. Flies love warm weather and apparently pretty much spend all summer breeding and, multiplying and creating more of their nasty little selves. This means if you live in the Boise area, you will likely notice an uptick in how many flies are in and around your home. And that's from about the end of July, beginning of August through September. Another pest to expect, and this is usually in earlier summer, but it does go all through the fall. While moths are certainly not as annoying as flies, with my boys running in and outside all day long, when they get in the house, it's certainly not my or my sweater's favorite thing. Okay, so con number 9 about living in Boise, Idaho. And this one will ruffle some feathers because heck, what's more personal than our kiddos? Let's talk about our public education system. So to preface this one is hard for me to bring up because both of my boys are currently attending a public school in the West Ada School District, and we absolutely love it. They love it, and Andy and I love it. but it's one that needs to be addressed because, well, not all residents have had and are having the same experience. Flat out, when it comes to education across the whole state of Idaho, it doesn't rank well. But just how bad is it really, and what can or is being done about it? According to a recent study by Wallet Hub, which I will link to in the description of this video, Idaho comes in at 36th place for overall school quality. Yeah, so not that great. To break that down further, we land in 34th place for educational attainment and 32nd for education quality. In addition to that, Idaho is one of 12 states that doesn't offer state-funded preschool programs to children under 5. And our high school graduation rate clocks in at 80%, which is well below the national average of 86%. That said, the city of Boise, as well as its surrounding cities such as Meridian and Eagle, have so many great options. If you're a parent, you just need to be prepared and up for exploring them. There are public charter schools, public magnet schools, private schools, online academies, homeschooling, learning pods. The list just really goes on. So while this fact certainly isn't one that Idahoans are especially proud of, there are options. Just know that you might have to do some research to find your fit. Now, let's break down con number 10. Let's talk about public transportation. In comparison to many other cities, Boise's public transport system is, well, it's not exactly extensive. Reliance on private vehicles is typically deemed to be pretty necessary for both commuting and getting around the city. While Boise is incredibly walker and biker friendly, if you don't have a vehicle, that does typically prove to be difficult rather quickly for most. That all said, across Ada County, there has been a lot of talk, both by politicians, advocates, and just regular residents regarding trains, more buses, and just really about expanding our current public transportation system. So we will likely see improvements and expansions in this area in the future, I think, but it's definitely not anything that is currently being worked on as of now. So if you are thinking about relocating from an area that has allowed you to rely heavily on public transportation, and that's something that would be very hard for you not to have, then you will really have to think about it before moving to Boise. Now, on to con number 11. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, or donkey. Yeah, let's talk about politics.
Politics, 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 politics.
Depending on your perspective, Boise might be too liberal or too conservative. This one is a tough one, and one that we see people on both sides of the political board fret about. The city of Boise, in relation to the state of Idaho, has definitely grown increasingly more liberal. There's a fantastic interactive map that you can and should check out. And hey, you can see it here, and I will post a link to it in the description of this video. If you put in a Boise zip code, so let's just go with 83702, which is typically perceived as being one of the most desirable zip codes in Boise, let's see what happens. Okay, as you can see, yep, while the rest of the state remains largely shades of red or reddish, pink, and what do we call that? Let's just say fuchsia. Boise is pretty blue. People often refer to it as being the purple area of Idaho. So again, for some, this might not be exactly what you want to see. On the other hand, we have definitely had people come check out the area only to find that it's way too conservative for them. If seeing a big old truck flying a Trump flag and a Go Brandon sticker is going to upset you, well, then brace yourself, because living in the Boise area means you will probably, on an almost daily basis, see just that, and sometimes more than once or twice. So just know that on both ends of the spectrum, we've seen people surprised by what they find. It might not be exactly what you think it's going to be like.
But I thought...
So we really want to encourage you to come check out the area so you can get a better feel for it. And be sure to check out that map that I've linked to in the description. Now, let's tackle our last big con. Con number 12, Boise's diversity, or rather, lack thereof. Before making the decision to move to Boise, please be aware that while Boise is easily the most diverse city in the state of Idaho, it's not nearly as diverse as many other U.S. cities. To learn more about this, please check out the U.S. Census Bureau's recent report. I'll put a link to a quick facts sheet that is very interesting and telling. Just straight out by national standards, Boise's diversity remains below average. That said, it is thankfully an incredibly inclusive and welcoming city. As with all places, there are always pros and cons to consider. If you would like to chat about whether Boise would be a fit for you and yours, please don't hesitate to give us a call or shoot us a text at 208-598-3040. We hop on Zoom calls just about every single day to connect with people looking to learn more about what it's like to live, breathe, work, and play in the Boise area. And we'd love to help you too. Until we have that opportunity, please consider hitting that subscribe button so that you continue to explore the area right alongside of us. We post videos every single week, videos that would have helped us back when we were eyeballing the area and considering making it our home. And last but certainly not least, please have a great rest of your day. Thanks for watching.